This is Face to Face with the co-founders of the National Association of Expert Advisors, Jay Kinder and Michael Reese.
We believe that we can change the real estate industry. There is a better way to sell real estate.
Your success is ultimately a sum of the decisions that you make.
And they're really developing a process, a set of guidelines, a set of procedures.
They're also best-selling authors.
Here today to discuss the issue is Jay Kinder and Michael Reese.
All right, welcome to Face, the podcast. I'm Jay Kinder.
I'm Michael Reese.
What's up, my brother? It is going to be a great podcast today because we're going to share with you a little bit about really our business philosophy and what we've really committed ourselves to as far as growing your real estate business. And really, I think kind of what we've been known for over the years is, exponentially growing your real estate business. Like, how do you not just grow it, but grow it in a way that you don't have to work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't have to do open houses every Sunday. You don't have to cart buyers around in your car all over the place and chase the business everywhere. But how do you get to that listing side of the business? How do you make that transition over to winning listings and really change the whole trajectory of not just your business, but your life, in my opinion, as it relates to real estate. So this is a very this will be a very popular podcast, but it's also one I'm very, very passionate about because I know the difference between chasing around buyers and showing houses all over town and how much that can consume your life, and really like once you can fully make that shift to focusing on listings, what it can do for your business. So how do you want to kick this off,
Man,
Michael?
I think we should start with why, and then maybe talk about how.
Right.
Because a lot of people, I mean, not everybody, a lot of people, but some will. I just think it's I don't want to take for granted that people. I know that whenever I didn't know what I didn't know, it was helpful for people to give me the why. So there's pros and cons to working, to just randomly working with everybody, but then there's the designing and being intentional about your business. So there's, I think if you find yourself in a situation where you're working with a bunch of clients and they're not turning into transactions, I think it comes down to when you're investing your time and you can't manage your time because you don't know how much time it's going to take. That's really, at the core of the problem is that a buyer doesn't give you a return on time like a seller does. And so, just kind of unpacking that, and then how we can help someone who's like, that's me. Yeah, I'm that guy right there. I'm still working with a ton of buyers, and I want to work with sellers. What would you suggest I do?
Right.
And I know you got the answer for that.
Well, I think we both do. So I think we can start with a case study that we did at Mastermind 2012, Aspen maybe? I mean, it was a long time ago. And we actually had surveyed, I guess, over a period of time, how much time it was taking to work with the buyer. And I think we came to the conclusion it was between 18 and 21 hours of time that gets invested on average to close a buyer transaction.
Right.
And that included the time you might spend showing a buyer that doesn't buy, and then, the managing of the closing and transaction and some of those pieces. But on average, we came to the conclusion as a consensus, and this is a group of people that did a ton of buyer transactions, so I feel like it's probably pretty close, that you would spend between 18 to 21 hours of your time invested in over the total transaction to close one buyer deal. And at the time, I think we came to the conclusion that for the most part, even depending on where you're at in your business, if you're not delegating a lot of the work, you could spend as little as an hour and a half to 2 hours of time with a seller and make the same exact commission.
Right.
So so the mindset is when you understand, and again, I think that it's interesting what you said a minute ago. What's really challenging when you're in real estate is you're really just looking for anything to work consistently as far as getting new business, right? Most everyone that's listening to this podcast that maybe this is resonating with, you get referrals, you maybe get listing referrals, you get buyer referrals, you're out there hustling the weekends, you're putting buyers in the car, missing. For me, I was missing family events, doing whatever it took because late at night showing properties with flashlights. I did all of that, right? And it just seemed like I could never get ahead, and until until I shifted my focus to the listing side of the business. And this is something that, that is interesting enough, is like when you decide, I'm done. I had one of our members that I was talking to the other day that we helped him with getting buyer leads, and he was broke, and really it's pretty easy to get buyer deals in one way, shape, or another. There's some low-hanging fruit out there to get a couple transactions on the buy side. It's not very difficult to do. So because of that, we helped him there first, knowing that the shift needed to be made to the listing side of the business. And he just got to a point where he finally was fed up. He couldn't work any harder. He couldn't work any more hours in the day. He couldn't have worked any longer or harder, and he just wasn't getting, even though he even made a hire and was trying to get some leverage with an assistant, brought his wife into the business actually, which just probably didn't help anything. And he's still working the same amount of hours working with buyers, and he wasn't closing more deals. He was just kind of felt like he hit a ceiling.
Right.
And that's been my experience as well. And when you look at making the shift to the sales side of the business, we'll get into what I think happens at that point. There's just there's no doubt that you have to master it.
Right.
Like you have to ignore everything else, because every day there's a new ad, or a new message, or a new idea, or you got floor time. But like, what are all the activities that you're doing, and is it leading to you getting listings, or is it taking you away from that? And until that focus shifts for you, and you make that commitment to focus on listings and have a clear goal around how to hit your income goals based on listings,
right?
And you commit to that, it's really it's really hard to be any more productive and make any more money. And I used the phrase or quote the other day. You're not making any more money. You're getting paid less per hour.
Right.
Is what it boils down to. And that's a painful thing to look at when you look at your business. And you're like, shit, I'm working harder than I've ever worked, and my dollar per hour is just less. I'm not actually netting any more money. And that's I think the importance of making that shift.
Yeah. So I think I think just to add some color to that, because I was thinking while you were talking, it was my brain was like bing, bing, bing. I've thought about a couple things. One thing I thought about is where my mind goes first. Like if I was going to help an individual and I said, hey, listen, let's talk about your personal business model. And I two things stood out. One is when I saw you and John's cost to sell, right? Like it was like in a cost of sale on a listing, you added up one element, which was most of the element in that document was people's time.
Right.
And so you're like, how much investment of time did it take for us to sell a listing? And so what I think really is when you do your business, if you were going to look at your business like a business and say, well, let's look at my model, then just like you were doing with the listing side cost to sell, on the buy side you have cost to sell. And so you obviously on the list side you get what we're talking about is you get a lot of leverage, but you also get in a buyer situation, like if I get a buyer tomorrow, I can't. I know that there's people that say, well, show them 3 houses, do this, do that. There's all different kinds of things, right? But
We've all tried.
Right. You don't control inventory. You don't control somebody's, like you could say like, this is the perfect house. This is everything you've been asking for. You can't control that. So the element that's out of your control is what do you put down in the column of an assumption of how much time you're going to spend on average over the next 12 months with every buyer you work with. And I think what the argument would be is that the amount of hours that goes in to facilitate, and when I say hours, it's not only hours into that, but it's, hey, when are you going to have time to go look again? Oh, well, we're out of town this weekend. Well, I can't do it this day. So it's the time between, on a listing, you put the home on the market, then you have actual market data. It's almost like you're playing the math. There's mathematical, there's feedback, there's assumptions like, well, I think this is what the home should bring. Am I getting showings? There's actually things that you can do. You can consult and advise based upon how to get the property moved, how to position the property in the market. And you can do all of that, in more of a fixed time. You can say, well, it's going to take me X to do this, get it on the market, and you can say, this is what I'm going to invest in to get a listing and to acquire that customer and to get it sold. On the buy side, I know that I have been 100% convinced that someone was going to buy a home that didn't, and then I've met people that I had no idea thought they were tire kickers, and they bought one that day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
With the listing, it's a little bit different. And I think that's where you get the predictability. And the most important thing is what you said the other day when we were out on the road is you are going to still get buyers. Even if you did, you're going to get ones that are homeless or ones that are at least at the point in the process that they're driving around looking for homes.
You're going to accidentally sell houses to buyers.
Yeah.
Like, just because you get listings, you're going to accidentally have more buyers than you cared. You know, you don't even have to put an assumption in your personal economic model, right? So like when we talk about model, we talk about it all the time because we know it's the key to success is having a plan.
Right.
It's clear to you on how you're going to accomplish your income goals. Like it doesn't matter how big your company is, how small your company. We all do it at one level or another. So if you set a goal that I want to make, whatever the number is, we can use any number, 250,000 or. You can do. We use 500,000 in one of the one of the trainings that I've done before. But even with just like taking one element like for sale by owners, because the cost per lead is zero. If you just focused on that and you just focused on getting face to face with them, there's some assumptions that we know over time that a certain percentage of people you get face to face with are going to turn into a listing, and a certain percentage of those listings are going to sell. Period. And if you just know if you just know those assumptions,
right,
and you just worry about getting face to face with 10 people, that results in 3 listings and 2 of them sell.
Right.
Let's just say that is the number. This week you just got to get face to face with a couple people. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like your focus becomes very clear. And what I notice with clients that are most successful in making this transition is that makes a lot of sense to them. You know what I mean? Like I'm not real clear. I'm doing some of this. I'm going to try this new open house thing. I'm going to go, I got this thing going on over here, and I'm doing this networking. Like, how many people did you get face to face with this week?
Right.
How many do you need to get face to face with? And it's funny because I didn't know what I was doing. I think I was 19, 20 years old. My dad gives me a Coldwell Banker action plan, right? And he tells me to fill it all out. Like I didn't know what I was doing. My goal was to tell you how bad it was. My goal was to make $35,000. That was my goal.
Right.
My 5-year goal was to make $50,000, right? So not very ambitious at this time. You know what I'm saying? This must have been the year I was 19. And it just got real clear. It's like, man, you just need to get face to face with X number of sellers. Now how do you do that? And the way your brain is wired to solve problems, you just start thinking, oh, well, that would be a way. This is a seller. Hey, you hear this person talking. Hey, you're trying. You're hearing and picking up on things you never really picked up on before. This is early in the game, but it just became clear that the solution to getting face to face with 2 sellers a week is all I needed to do to hit my income goals. And if you just stay focused on that, it's funny because you'll think, well, that was a waste of time, and then they refer you someone.
Right.
Or you go meet with somebody and and you tell them, I can't help you. I'm not going to take this listing, because it's not going to sell. So you need to prepare for plan B and rent the house or whatever. And then those people send you a referral.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you just can't quantify what the value of face to face is. You know what I'm saying? Like, funny, that's the name of our podcast. The value of being face to face with sellers and what it can do to your business and the compound effect of that and the trajectory it can put you on in terms of massively growing your business once you become the dominant agent in your marketplace.
I think what that makes me think of is how someone makes the transition is what you just said was they start focusing on leads, right? So like on the buy side, if you think about it, and I'm going to ask you this, like what do you feel like the person stuck in the buy side, where are they getting their leads?
Right. It's a great question. It depends on who we're talking to. If we're talking to someone who's doing really well on the buy side and they're super busy on the buy side, they're probably spending some money on it. And today when I ask this question, it seems like there's a lot of folks that are spending a bunch of damn money on Zillow. And that's it's like crack. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have any leads and you don't really have either the confidence on a way to go at the listing side of the business, or you don't really know that should be the plan, and you haven't really had anyone help coach you through why that is, then it's the best solution ever, right? I mean, I can spend some money here. I know I got some leads coming in. Now I got some, I got something I can do. I'm staying busy, productive. It feels productive to call buyer leads, but it's just not very predictable, right? Like it's just not. You can't say I'm going to get 5 this month and they're going to close this month, because they don't. It never works out that way. The time that they're entering the process and reach out to you or ask about a property, there's just not enough metrics to that are proven, I believe, to say, oh yeah, you're going to close 2% of these or 5% of these or 10% of these over what period of time. So you're building up a pipeline, and what happens with real estate agents that are busy is they don't follow up very well. So you end up having a pipeline of people that you don't follow up with, and most of them don't have the technology to back up, to help make sure that they're doing that, or they don't have the systems in place to do that. So it's basically the now buyers are all you really get out of that, and you feel like you're chasing, and you feel like you're losing. You're always losing.
Right.
And you're just trying to stay afloat. And then every once in a while you get a couple of referrals, and you had a really good month, and you're closing 4 deals, and it's a good month, and the next month you're still, every weekend you're out in the car showing properties again, and that rat race never really ends. And even if you get really efficient, I think we're kind of talking about the buy side of the business as if you're not efficient, and you could be more efficient. Like, yeah, there is a good argument to say, and you started to say this, but there's a good argument to say, okay, well, what is a qualified buyer? You're willing to sign a buyer rep agreement. They all come meet with me, and I go through our presentation of value. But that's not where most people are that are stuck doing 3 or 4 deals a year, right? Like they're not probably as disciplined. They don't probably have every buyer rep signed. They don't probably have they only consider a buyer they're going to put in the car as someone who said they're going to buy in the next 30 days, or they're not going to show them property. Like, there's not that, we tend to, at this point in your business, you tend to go show anybody that has a pulse. If you think they got good credit, you might get them to the lender first,
Right.
So you spend a lot of time, wheel spinning there, and you can become more efficient, but at the end of the day, it's just it's not something you can never really get past. And I've seen with a little bit of leverage, I've seen agents close 5, 6, 7 deals, buyer deals a month, but man, you're just killing yourself between buyer inspections, closing. You can't keep that pace up. So you're never really, you're never going to have a life if this is the focus that you have. And at a certain point, I liked working with buyers. I liked meeting people. It's the ones that wanted to look at every damn house in every price range I didn't like working with. But I'd much rather work with that buyer because they called off my listing and double-ended. You know what I'm saying? That's where that's where I started really making money in real estate. And it's funny because it's obvious, right? It's like, oh, well, you take a listing, you're gonna double end it, especially in today's market across the country. I would say most people are experiencing difficulty in buyers finding houses, which means you got some control as to what buyers you want to work with if they're gonna make an offer on a property. So when you list it, you got a good chance to double end it if you're smart. And that just gives you a huge lever. I mean, to make double the commission on every deal that you're doing for almost the same amount of time, basically.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons people get stuck on the buy side, but it sure doesn't take long to convince them that this is where you need to focus.
Yeah. And so I think one of the things that if you're wanting to make that switch, you have to. It's almost like you have to make an investment, and you're either invested. From my observation, looking at people, it's they're investing their money into Zillow. They're investing their time into open house, or showing buyers around that haven't committed to work with them, and they're not 100% sure when they're going to buy. And so what happened, and this is just my opinion, what makes you feel good when you're a real estate agent is, let's face it, it's a lot easier. Buyers look for selection. It's a lot easier to go to a nice house, which selection, sit in there, you're sitting.
Right. Watching TV usually.
Waiting, right? Then someone comes in and you talk to them, right?
Right.
That's real easy. Or for those same 3 hours, you could be sitting at your desk and you don't have to wait till Saturday or Sunday, because for most of us, we would agree that agents do that this weekend.
Right.
But what do you do Monday through Friday?
Right.
What are you doing Monday through Friday to move the needle? And then what does an agent do Monday through Friday to get a transaction that's stuck on the buy side? If you follow, what I think it is I saw this thing the other day, and it's really to get to the sell side, you got to change your habits, right? And you got to say, you know what? There was a day when I had my first buyer agent, I'll never forget, where I said, I could sell Mr. Gordon a home, but I'm going to give that one to you. And I didn't give it to him saying, so I can sit at home.
Right.
I did it so that I could keep doing things that move the needle on the sell side. And I think the problem is that people don't have what they would think is any leads.
Right.
And then where the least amount of pain to get a lead is, think about this. Let's say, give me a second. Are you in the market to buy X, Y. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if there's something you might be thinking about buying.
Right.
Like,
Well, there's always something I'm thinking about.
that's why when I thought of you, I was like, well, this isn't going to be fair because he'll probably say yes. But anytime someone's interested, when they have like awareness that they're looking at doing something, there's a long timetable. So you go up to a buyer, I see him at an open house, and you say, hey, are you looking at buying? Yeah, we are looking at buying. You could probably ask my sister that right now. Hey, Jessica, you thinking about buying a home? Yeah, we talked about it. I got one.
Right.
Right? And there's a good, like, as in a real estate agent, you're trying to feel every day. It sucks to feel like you're losing.
Right.
So you're
looking for that.
You're looking for, man, today was a good day. I was productive. But if you switch your mindset for go for no mindset,
right,
which is just a mindset, it's a habit shift. And that's the shift. It's that you're either going out there to really validate what you're doing and that you're being productive. And at the end of the day, that's cool. But at the end, most people, if you look at them, not all, but most, I would say 80% of them are doing the same amount of business this year as last year. They haven't changed any habits. And if you look at where their time's being invested and their money's being invested, they're not changing. They don't have any promise from Zillow. They're buying impressions within a zip code and they get leads. And yes, I realize that those leads are probably better than any other type of lead.
Right.
But I think that that's still within reason. And it makes me think of a lady we bumped into when we were in Orlando. She was like, please help me get off the buy side.
I'm done.
But I can't unplug from my Zillow yet. Right?
And the crack.
Yeah. It's like, I'm a taxi driver, but I really want to be a real estate agent. Right? That's how she was saying. But taxi driving's paying the bills.
Right.
And so the thing that you have to do is at one day, I don't care who you are. One day, I don't care who does it. One day to be good at the listing side, unfortunately, sellers do not go around looking for agents sitting in homes to talk to them about selling their home. So that strategy doesn't work. What sellers do, I mean, and this is true, even when people go to the open house, they're not going for the agent, they're going for selection. Buyers look for selection and affordability. What do sellers look for, right? And so the great thing that you said is, and I was thinking about this when you said the fit for sale by owner, if me and you had to sell a house in 90 minutes and we got $1 million, would you get in your car and try to find a buyer? Or would you get in your car and
I wouldn't schedule an open house either.
You wouldn't schedule open house, right? Because for you, an easier way to sell a home would be, well, I need to have somebody that's an ideal, what we would call as an MQL, a market
motivated, and motivation and timing would need to match, right? Like,
and so what lead source would you go to?
Right. I would go to someone who either had just had their house on the market, listed for 6 months and expired, which I know they were willing to pay a commission and I know they were interested in selling or it wouldn't have been on the market. Or I would go to a for sale by owner who had as a sign in the yard saying, I want to sell my house.
So
that would just be, because I know for a fact that those people are going.
Because your goal is to sell a house.
I can help those people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can help them sell that house better than they can themselves.
And we'll make it another one. If you had, the thing is like when I got into real estate and you kind of laid out the game, it's pretty common sense. It was like, okay, I don't know anybody. I don't have anybody that's telling me to show them around. So, it's 7 a.m, got to do something.
Hustle.
Let me go talk to somebody, right? And so I think that most people who are not on the listing side, it's because they have some type of fear as it relates to the process of getting listings.
Yep.
And what they
1000%.
think is that they have the desired outcome, but they need somebody to shift their mind on, and it happens to, you went through it.
Yeah.
I had to go through it. I'll never forget. For me, it happened. I was fortunate enough I didn't do it in real estate. I remember I walked out of the office and walked up to Sid Dabrowski and Thomas Drinkwater, and I'm like, all right. This lady lived in Alma, Texas, or something like that. I was like, all right. She wants to buy a membership. Now, this lady, it was a 3-year contract to Bally Total Fitness for $59 that totaled like an $1,800 investment, what she had to put, whatever. I was like, she wants to buy. And they were like, well, then you need to sell her. And I was like, this is where y'all get up and go walk in and talk to her and then do that selling part. I don't want to do the selling part. I just do the nice part. Right? That was easy. I just showed her around the gym. When it came time to talk about, to do the hard part, I wasn't willing to. And so they said that Thomas looked at me and he said, Mike, you either make it in this industry or you are going to fail, but it's going to be based upon your decision you make right now. Because we all agree, Derek.
Ain't nobody closing that deal.
We're not TOing anymore because I was getting everybody else to do my work.
Right.
And it was just a skill.
Let me warm them up.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went in there and I ended up closing the deal, and I came out, and I'll never forget. I was like, man, I had gone 6 months just chasing, looking, you're at the gym, you're a young guy, you're looking at girlfriends, and, I wasn't working,
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
I was the real estate agent that was out there licking plates and going to the hamburger man, and, just like, I wasn't doing anything.
Right.
Then when I realized that, like, oh my gosh, I could actually make some real money here, and I looked at every one of those leads. I mean, it just changed. It was like, just because they say no don't mean no. It doesn't mean no. It
Right.
just means no to that question.
Right.
Right? And so, like, for me, it was just a mindset shift. Once it shifted, and my belief, and I would talk to people and then this is how I ended up getting really, really good. And when I was really good, it was because I fell in love with demonstrating in front of other people. Watch what happens. Watch this. I guarantee you when they say no, I'm going to make them say yes.
Right.
And once that became the game to me,
right.
then I became good at the game.
Right.
And it was the meaning that I was given to what was going on. And so I believe that agents who want to get to the listing side, you have to ask here like in the 4-Hour Work Week. You remember that book? You remember where he says to go down and lay down in a coffee shop on your back?
Right.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And he says to do that because he wants you to get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. He wants you to go to a public place and lay down with your feet out in a Starbucks in the middle of the store. And he wants you to get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
And so, like, you have to becoming good at the listing. But what happens is when you do it, you start to get good at it. And when they say no, you start to get experience, and
That's the key.
Yeah,
Right
you become confident.
You start to learn what the questions are that they're going to ask, or what the objections are, or what they're not clear about that you have to be able to overcome. And I don't care how you get in front of a customer, there is going to be an objection along the way until you master a presentation that covers all of those objections in order to getting to a yes. It doesn't matter. You can call it selling, you can call it what you want, but once you develop that skill, it can't be taken away from you. Another thing that's in that book that he says to do that was really gangster, I love Tim Ferriss, but is go to the mall or wherever you're going, and stare at everyone right in the eyes until they look away.
Right.
And that's a good drill, man. If you haven't ever done that, and confidence is a challenge, like it feels awkward to do that, but do it to everyone. Stare at everyone until they pass you, until they look away.
Right.
And it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And you really keyed in on something I think is the holy grail for this, making this shift to the buy side or the sell side. And to me, I look at the buy side, and there's just not a value proposition, right? Like, just like you said, you can walk around and you warm them up, and someone else is going to TO them. Like, buyers you ain't got to have a value proposition. You just got to have a car that runs and an MLS key, and you're as good as the next person.
Right.
And hopefully you got a good map.
Right.
So that's it's easy to feel productive and really to even get a little bit of success on the buy side, because you don't have to convince someone to do something to get paid. Now, should you? Yes, you should have a value proposition for the buyer. You should articulate that, and they should commit to buying from you if they're going to buy from anybody because of the value you bring to the table. Hands down. But that's not how most people start to get successful on the buy side. They start by showing anybody and everybody, and people that like them tend to return their phone calls, and every once in a while somebody buys. But when you go to the listing side of the business, all of a sudden something has to shift. Not just your mindset of go for no, but you got to learn how to articulate a value proposition, period. And there's just no two ways about it. You have to understand what, they're paying the commission. The buyer don't see it like that. They don't, I don't have to pay you anything? Okay, great. I'll go look at houses with you all day. They don't have a problem with that. Now you got to articulate your $10,000 commission. You got to start to learn how to, you got to learn how to sell. You got to understand how to present value. You have to have a value proposition that makes your value visible. And I just have never met anyone that was successful in real estate that didn't learn that skill. For me, I didn't have the skill. I damn sure wasn't born with it. The same story. I was showing buyers, and then there was Tom King, an agent in my office, was stealing them from me. That asshole. I still hate that dude. He was just stealing them from me, like right up in front of my nose. Like, he would take them when they would come in the office and start talking to them and befriend them, and then he would try to act like they were his clients. And he must have done it to everybody, But my dad was the broker, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I ain't gonna let that ain't gonna fly. You ain't stealing from me. But he sure as hell tried. I mean, he did it a couple times and got away with it. And I was just like, this is a terrible business. This is BS, you know what I'm saying? But I tried to act like he was helping me, but he tried to keep the commission. And then I'll never forget, his name was always on the board with all the stars at the top. He had all the sales. I don't know how you got all them sales, you thief. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was a dirty business, but I didn't like it. But I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? I was green. I didn't know what I didn't know, because it ain't like they show any of us any of this stuff when you get in real estate. But for me, what happened is I started going to a bunch of different events. And I think this is a success trait, period. I mean, either you're going to learn how to sell one way or another. But for me, I would go to, this seminar or this or that or the other, or this $200 books here, or we'd go to a couple of bankers event or whatever. And, I just started trying to learn little things that I pick up. And some things were good, some things weren't. But I went to Roger Butcher, and I didn't have a way to go after the seller. And I tell this story a few times, but it's pretty comical. This guy had a bunch of dumb things he did, but he had a couple things that were really good. One of them was called his 30-day marketing plan. And the 30-day marketing plan was something of value that I could say that made me better than anybody else. I didn't have nothing to say. What are you going to say? List with me. I used to use Coldwell Banker and all their stats, and look at our website at Coldwell Banker, gets 1 million visitors, blah, blah. That's the kind of stuff I used to do to try to present value. And it worked a little bit, but it wasn't going to work. It wasn't the answer. And so I had this 30-day marketing plan, and they used to sell this blue folder that says, "Sell it. I'm a counselor or something real estate counselor." And then on the back it said "sold." He used to tell you, walk up to the house with it said "sold" on the outside, so they see it says "sold." All this dumb stuff, right? But anyways, it gave me a little bit of confidence. And then he started telling me about for sale by owners, and he's like, these people put a sign in the yard, and they literally put a sign in the yard saying that they want to sell their house, and you're going to drive past it and not write down the phone number. Do you not know what business you're in? Like, he started really giving us a hard time about it. And I got all excited, and I literally left that event at noon, and I started calling for sale by owners in Norman, Oklahoma, not even my marketplace. I was like, he's right. Real estate agents are stupid. Why would you not call these people? Well, then I learned that they didn't really want to talk to me. But but I had to have something I had to have a value. The lesson I learned was the value proposition. Once I had something I could say that articulate to the seller that made me different, that helped them accomplish their goal. And then I actually went through a training with Bruce Tanner. The guy is non-existent anymore, but I spent a ton of time with this guy learning how to sell. And he used to come to town. He would train car salesmen, people from the radio station, real estate, didn't matter. And that's where I learned the principles behind the selling process, the pre-planning before you get to a house and everything you need to know. The seller counseling interview. That's when we crafted the seller counseling interview and all the information you need to gather in order to navigate and control the environment and the conversation. And then over the 30-day marketing plan was and this listing presentation in the beginning was pretty lackluster, but it got the job done, and I started having success. And then once you win a couple listings, it's over. You ain't never going back, because there's just this huge opportunity in front of you. You see it now, and you need leads. Now you need seller leads, and now you're focused on seller leads. But when you set the goal and you say, okay, I'm going to make $250,000 or $500,000 a year, how would I do it on the listing side? And you break down how many people you need to get face to face with. And you have some confidence behind you because you now know a process on how to sell, and you understand what are all the pieces that you need to have in order to confidently go in and talk to someone and try to help them with the sell their home. Then that low cost, there's really no cost for a FSBO, no cost for an expired.
Right.
And now you have the ability to go out and, in most markets, you make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in a month. Just with those two sources, not to mention what that allows you to fund in terms of growing more listings and spending that money in the right way to really exponentially grow the business. And then you get a few listings, and what happens? Buyers are calling, you're double-ending them. Before you know it, you're making $500,000. That's pretty much the process we see most people go through. I say this all the time, and I'm going to continue to say it until somebody can prove to me that they didn't do it. I don't think I've ever met anyone that I know of that we've coached, and we've coached a lot of people. And we've had a couple that have done it, but their businesses faltered and fell back down to a lower level. Because if you haven't learned the skills, and I mean mastered the skill of going and winning a listing, if you haven't mastered that and called FSBOs, called expireds, because it's free, man. If you're going to go practice on somebody who it didn't cost you no money, and learn those skills. Then you very rarely have I ever seen anyone get above 100 transactions. Or net more than a couple $100,000 a year. really net more than $100,000 a year if you want to get technical about it, depending on your average sale price. So it's just and it's just part of the process, right? And it's not the holy grail. We know how to generate a ton of ways to generate seller leads, but it is one of those factors that like you either have the balls to do it or you don't. And pardon my expression, ladies that are listening, because you obviously that wouldn't make sense to you, but you got to have the guts to do it. Bottom line, and you got to have the confidence. And once you have the confidence, and then it becomes a game, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just a game. I got to get them to say yes. How do I get them to say yes?
And I'll tell you, this is just my experience, just to kind of shed some non-threatened. I mean, you know, the crazy thing about expireds and for sale by owners, this is my experience, is when you get face to face with them, they're just like any other people, and you build rapport with them, and they forget that they were a FSBO,
right?
And so. You know, this is I made more money off of for sale by owners, I think, than I did expireds. That ended up switching when whenever I quit, because that was from marketing. They were way more receptive to, I feel like, my marketing efforts.
Right.
But with for sale by owners, I'll say for me it was when I was at Bally's. I had read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it was life-changing for me because I didn't understand influence and all of the things that happened in the book. And there was a couple different very specific things that I would do. But I remember walking into a for sale by owner, and the guy was like 6'8" or 7. I mean, he was huge. And I knocked on the door like, I'm waiting for him to come out. And the door opened, and I was like, not only is it already intimidating to knock on the door of a FSBO, but he had a lakefront home in Windhaven, which is just a nice community, especially nice for me. I thought his house was the best house in all of Dallas, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm gonna knock on this one. And he opens the deal. He owns video game arcades all over, Texas. And I just said what I was like. I had a little line. I said what I said, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll show you around." And he showed me around. And what I learned, this was what I learned, is that I would follow up with that guy, and I'd call him on Monday.
Yeah.
Call him every Monday. So like I realized that like this guy's like someone I know from my hometown. This guy looks like he might change his own oil. You know what I'm saying? Like so I'm not gonna pressure him.
Right.
I'm just gonna win him as a friend. So when it comes time to list, so I went with this strategy because it worked at Bally's, right? And so I was like, he had a OU thing in his house, which we talked about, and
you had some intelligence.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit, and then I followed up with him every Monday, and I'll never forget. It was on my deal. It was like the 4th or 5th or 6th one. I was like, man, I'm not gonna bother him this time. And I said, I'll call him one last time. And I called him up, and he said, man, I was just thinking about you. Can we get this thing on the market this weekend? And I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, we can do that, And I was just like so excited. And so I came up with the theory that like there was like even with them, if I stayed in contact with them and I would call them on Monday and I would say, hey man, did you sell the house this weekend? And so I think it became confident. But let me tell you what happened. The confidence it took on the phone gave me beyond the confidence that I needed when I was there. It was harder on the phone when I had no rapport, no football, OU, nothing to talk about. Right. I mean, my window's like, yeah, who's this? What do you want? And then I had like that little window to get to the door, and then and so I agree like wholeheartedly with what you're saying, and I think people need to understand that if you can learn that, it's going to help you. It helped me with hiring ISAs because I had done it. I could lead. Right. I could answer questions.
Right. You could correct them on their script.
Yeah, it's like
tonality.
Caleb was saying. Yeah, Caleb was saying on the in the inside sales predictability market maker deal we did the other day. He was saying like, I have to still go in there and show them because he had that skill, right? Like you had that skill, and so I think it's one of those things that you just have to. It is really the probability, if you can learn that, put it this way, if you can learn that, everything else in the game comes easy. Right. So you might as well eat the frog and just figure it out now because it's going to serve you. If you can go and convince a for sale by owner to meet with you and you can go and articulate your value proposition and answer them, and it's not that you're going for no, it's just that listen, after you get told no a couple times, you start to realize, okay, when he said that, what could I have said differently? Right. What could I have done differently? And for me, I'll never forget, I was nervous to ask for this. I was always trying to remember, like, what did I do first? Do I walk the house first, or do I sit at the table first?
Right.
And so I'm walking around, and I'm like, I'm already into it, and I'm thinking I'm messing up, and I'm like, I remember I grabbed the cupboard, and I opened it up, and I was like, man, how are these cabinets? Dude I was a lucky guess. It was like Easter egg. He was like, oh.
He cracked open.
Yeah, he cracked open. He was like, oh, I put those cabinets in, blah, blah. I was like, I rang the register. He just talked about these cabinets, and I was like, you mind if I look in the backyard?
Right.
Boom, I hit 2 of them. Like, I opened up the backyard. No, most people don't go in the backyard.
Right.
And I'm in the backyard like 3 steps out, and I walk like 5 more steps and turn around and look at the roof, which means nothing to me. Most agents are just talking about why they should list with them. Right. I'm looking at the roof, and he said, 40-year shingle, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I was like, that is. I thought that's what that was. Right. I didn't even know what he was.
All the while, your stock is going up.
Yeah.
I like this guy.
Yeah, he did. And then I said one last thing. I said because it was working so well. I said, "Where's the AC?" Oh, it's on that side. I got to show it to you.
Right.
And I went over there, and I was like, I didn't even do anything different, but just like he thought I was way more thorough in my questions and walking around the house. When it got time to do the presentation, I really didn't have to do any. He felt like I was like the smartest guy, and I didn't do anything.
All you do is validate the things that matter to him.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So it's one. And my thing is that you just get experience,
right?
And it's that experience that's like,
whenever
because sometimes you don't have to go to the cabinet, but you're like, she gonna make me ask about the cabinet. I'm gonna have to loosen her up.
Right.
They come in and they're like, they got their manila folder with like 9 pieces of paper, and they're looking at you like that, and you're like, and then when you leave, they're like, oh, thank you, Michael. Right. And they're all your buddy and stuff, and you're just like you said, you're out reporting them. So I think that people got to understand is that the listing side is actually. It's better. You're in their home. It's more. It's like you got to get over.
It's more fun, man.
It's way more fun.
It's way more
and
fun.
more profitable.
Hopefully, I think most people that are listening probably aren't intimidated by much. I don't think you listen to us very long if you are. But that it's just one of those things that once you've experienced it, and really, I mean, we spent our whole career building the process around how to execute.
Well, I want to say this though, but the only problem I gotta say this because it would defeat the entire point of this podcast for me. We're out on the road. We went to Orlando, Houston, and I know I'm trying to wind you up.
Oh boy.
and the point is that I'm talking to these people. They're really great people. Great people. I feel like Donald Trump right now. Like
you do. Like kind of look like a little bit.
No, I don't.
With your hands.
No, and I don't even know him. But the point is that I'm talking, and they're like, this one lady looks at me and she says, am I going to have to call people? And I was like, yeah, you're going to have to call people. And like, so the fact that, like, and this is what because you made one, like most people, if they're not intimidated, then why aren't they calling?
Right. They don't know what to say. That's the bottom line. They do not know what to say.
They don't.
Either they don't know what to say, or they don't genuinely believe that they can help somebody. And I think for me that was a big get. Not only did I need to understand how to articulate my value and how to the process for winning a deal. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, keep going.
Well, then let's take Agent X in Austin, good friend of ours. He's doing a great job.
Right.
Why did Agent X, and then our Agent Y in Birmingham, Alabama, and Agent and all the people I'm talking about in Virginia. Why do these agents, does it take so hard for them to say, I'm going to call every day? And then I get on the phone with, what's the guy that sells 1,000 homes? All of his agents are in there till 10 o'clock, every one of them calling. Like he led them that way. They grew that way.
Right.
And then these other agents, they need a closing. They don't know where their next closing is coming from. They definitely, if you ask them, said they need more listings. And they say, yeah, I need more listings. And you said, do you call FSBOs? Nope. Do you call expireds? No. Why is that? What's the fundamental problem?
You can drill. If you're going to drill it down to the foundation, it's either you got a big enough why or you don't. Either there's something there that you want more of in your life, and you're willing to go through whatever. You're coachable enough to do whatever it takes to be able to accomplish that goal for yourself or for your family, or you don't. Like I don't know if that's what you were shooting for, but like you drill it right down to that. I don't know, and it's funny because obviously it wasn't income that drove my goals. You know what I'm saying? Because I had a $50,000 goal when I started learning. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my 5-year plan. You know what I mean?
They'll go to the office.
Right.
It's not the time.
Right.
In my mind, I'm just thinking as you said that, like they'll go to the office. They'll go all day, every day.
Yeah. I mean,
but they
coach. I can tell you from my perspective. It's
and then here's another thing. And then the ads say, "Don't cold call," and then they come to like a moth in a flame.
Right. Right.
I'm just wondering. Like,
I think it has everything to do with confidence and knowing what to say or believing that you can help somebody. Like, so like to me, like I never liked making calls. I mean, it's like I don't want to just cold call. That wasn't what I wanted to do. But I also knew fundamentally that if I didn't talk to human beings, I wasn't going to ever freaking meet one to sell anything. So, like, common sense tells you you're going to have to talk to people. Now, do you want to pick up the phone book and make dials? Probably not necessarily the easiest way to find a client, but you dang sure want to be willing to call somebody who has a sign in the yard that says, "I want to sell my house." Like, that's a no-brainer, right? Like if somebody says, "I want to know the value of my house," you can help that person. And when I adopted the whole strategy of preeminence and just falling in love with the client and just trying to help people, just genuinely being interested in people and what are you trying to accomplish, where are you moving to, like it no longer is sales, right? Like it's a matter of showing someone how you can help them accomplish that goal better than they could on their own. And that was a frame that I adopted, a mental model I adopted early on that made that not what. Not what a lot of people look the way they look at it.
And I think that's what I was looking for. Because say what your mental model was.
Well, my mental model was that I can help you better than you can help yourself, and I owe it to you to get face to face with you and show you how I can do that.
Okay, and so that's a what I knew yesterday. When it came back, I was like twitching and my neck hurt. And I was running by these houses, and I wanted those listings. And what my mine is, I feel like that's my money.
Right.
And when someone listed a home, it genuinely upset me.
Yeah.
Like I would be like,
in your neighborhood, that don't go over
driving
well.
into my neighborhood, driving around my corner. Just one that I'm like, maybe you've had it.
I had that feeling.
You've even sold the house, maybe,
Yeah.
and you're like.
I called every listing that I ever went on the appointment and didn't win, and asked them why they didn't list with me.
Right.
I hate losing. I don't want anyone to get that deal if I can't get it. And it's funny you mentioned that came later for me probably. Maybe not. I have to rethink that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to.
Because it happened yesterday. I went on a run and I ran by these signs and I was looking at them. And it just, something in me just wanted to win. I was even thinking like, man, if we run by a FSBO, I'm going to stop and knock on their door because I'm tired of seeing these. That's how it was though. When I started, None of my signs were out there. So I went and got 20 signs and I put them by the door and I had one accountability person and I told them, I said, I'm going to get rid of every single one of these signs. And then this is a true story. I just told this story to somebody else. I got door hangers, and I did door hangers in one neighborhood. I did it till noon, and I had a little route that I went on. And then I drove home, and on the way home, I knocked on the expired's doors that I had called that day. So I would make a little route. I'd make a little route, and I would drive by them, and there was this girl named Kim. I'd see her card on the door, and I was like, oh, Kim was at this one. And I'd drive my route down Blair Oaks, up down North Colony Boulevard, back to my house, and I did that every day, every single day. And that's what I did, is I spent my time investing my time, and then when I would see one of those ones that I put the card on, and I bought VHS tapes. You told me to buy them. I bought 100 VHS tapes.
And you're revealing our age, man.
Yeah.
Talk about that kind of stuff.
And I would go and I would put these VHS tapes on the door, and I was so cheap, I put a note on it and let them know that I'd be back to pick it up because I wanted to come back and get my tape. It would say, "I'll be back on this day to pick it up," and then I'd knock on the door. Yeah, you got my tape. I really went for my tape. You know, and then they would talk to me, and so but I was spending my time and energy and effort. And then when I would
you were focused on getting listings.
100%. But what it did, dude, I swear, it's like your story. Like I did the math and I looked at that house and I knew what it was worth when it was a FSBO.
Right.
And it was on Stand Ridge on the way home, and I was like, that is 10 G sitting right there.
Yep.
And the most money I ever made in real estate in my first year was I made more money in month 7 than I did months 1 through 6. In month 7, I'd made $18,000 in 1 month. And I had gone to.
That's a good feeling.
It was a great feeling. I went to Italy for 10 days, and
That's awesome.
I was in Italy, and I had given I had these listings, and not to be, I don't even want to say it now because I don't want it to be taken wrong, but I had one listing on Windhaven, and anyway, they were going through a divorce, and this is a funny story. I'll tell you after the podcast. But I remember when I got home, Kobe said, "Oh, guess what? We sold Windhaven," and I was like, "No, we didn't." He was like, "Yeah, we did." It was a FISBO I had worked. I did my system. I called it 4 times. They said, "Yeah, come." I was looking at it. I was like, "Dang, man, this is money." And then his wife worked with me as well, and she was like, "Tell him." And I was like, "What?" He brought out these papers and dropped them. And he was like, "Sold this one, sold this one, sold this one, sold this one." I was like,
"Yeah, checks in the
because
while you were gone.
It took me 6 months to build up that inventory, right?
Right.
And I was like, "Holy smokes, really?" And I was like, I remember going home. I remember going to the closing table and walking out and getting in my car and
you robbed a bank.
Yeah, looking at the check and being like, this is more money than, this is a lot of money, right? And
right.
I'm like, so when I'm going home, I'm like, dude, I wonder if I can beat that month.
Right.
And so you go from an $18,000 month to a $379,000 month.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it was all from just getting a little piece of
Right.
that apple. Listing 368 homes, Kathy called me one a day. I brought one in a day, every single day, 365 days a year. I brought a listing into the house. I'm talking to the guy who wrote the book, but I'm just saying, for those people out there, that's how it works.
Right.
And so I could never do that. I'm not saying that I didn't, but it was very early on that I'll remember the.
You couldn't unsee it, right?
Yeah,
like that,
and I couldn't do it with the buy side. I remember my emotion. It was harder for me on the buy side.
Right.
But but the difference is I wasn't intimidated. I did not have the mindset of that lady that said I ain't gonna make calls.
Right.
Here was my mindset.
Right.
I want every damn one. Right. That's was my mindset. I want every listing that I can possibly get, and if they got one, I want to at least know, did you talk to Michael Reese and get the job? And if they listed their home and I didn't talk to them, I was trying to figure out what I needed to do, and that's how I felt like I was doing something wrong.
Right. That's exactly. And there's no doubt. It's funny because I think most everybody that has a great level of success in real estate, or they're listening for sure right now, they're like, that's me right there. You know what I'm saying? So how do you if somebody doesn't have that hunger, how do you get them to see this? That's the thing that I struggle with, because I'll try to help anybody. You know what I'm saying? And I've had people because once they see it, it's over. But let me break it down to this. I think the principle, it might be this: the sales skills that you had, you knew you could apply, and you knew what the value of those sales skills were going to return from valleys to there. I learned the sales skills while in real estate and saw what I could apply that to and what it resulted in. I remember sitting in Bruce Tanner's class doing the math on like what the value of, and did the reverse engineer how many appointments and what the value of all that was, and did a personal economic model is what I did in that sales training. And I realized, holy smokes, there's a bunch of more money to be made. And I had the same experience as you. It wasn't probably $18,000 in a month, but it was that there was a shift where I saw how much money could be made. Like, it was really very possible. I couldn't unsee that. There was nothing that could have made me go back to thinking any smaller than, the sky was the limit. There was no limit. I could meet with a seller every day. I could meet with 3 or 4 a day. I didn't know it at the time, but I ended up meeting with sometimes 5 a day. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can list as many houses as you can, the opportunity is bigger than that. But, I think that might be part of it. I think the commitment to becoming trained, and becoming and learning sales and understanding and having the confidence in not just in yourself, but the confidence in what you do to help somebody accomplish their goal, and you do it better than anybody else. Once you have that and you see it and you have a little taste of it, I feel like you have to have a little taste of that. You can't unsee it.
I think you made me think of something. So yesterday when I was running, at the very end, I thought we were running pretty fast. In fact, it was probably the last quarter mile, and I was running with Woods, and Woods said, "Come on, man, let's go hard." I was like, "I'm going hard," right? I was going as hard. We had just, And I ran by my house, and he told me later. He said, "You almost broke me because I thought you were." He said, "I thought you were going to go twice." And he said, "I was gonna joke with you and say let's do it again, but I figured you might be crazy enough to do it again." And so I didn't play with you that way. But the point is that what you made me think of is, this is just a coincidence, but at Bally's we used to get these things called lead boxes, and I outsold everybody 10-1. I mean, no one even touched me. But they never called their leads. They would get these leads and they would literally call them once, and there was a drawer for them. I made money off all their leads because they didn't call them.
Right.
And you know how many people are sitting on leads they don't even call?
Right.
Even if they get buyer leads, there's sellers in the lead. You don't even need leads. You have
Call the buyer,
expired.
yeah, right. Call buyer leads and ask where they got a home to sell.
So what I did was, and this is where you made me think. It made me think of Al, but I don't remember. I'm not going to mess up Al Stasik's little formula, which was like the 5-8-6-2-3-1 formula.
Right.
But I think it comes down to, everybody has their own thing. I think you have to be able to win the appointment. The last thing you want to do is do all the things up to go get on the appointment and not win it. That's just, and I definitely think that that is the part that you should be able to master, how you articulate your value, how you get on that appointment. You have to have leveraged lead generation, then you have to have conversion of those leads. And so what I feel like what Jay was saying is, FSBOs are leads, expireds are leads. Those are all free leads, and I think that's the logical, easy place to start. You have to. What I just know works for me, and this is in the power of habit, right?
Right.
And I do this when you were talking, I'm like, damn, I do that with everything. I do it with everything. If there's something I don't want to do, then I figure out what habit I got at anything. It doesn't matter. And
that's so funny you
and
said
then
that.
and then I get down to the detail. Every time when I'm committed, it's almost like a goal. I'm like, what sacrifice am I willing to make for that goal? And so, and then once and I know this is true because I know Aisha Kennedy. I sold Aisha's house. The only reason I sold it is because I had a deal and I was truthful with myself, and I worked on Saturday. If I didn't do X, Y, Z, Monday through Friday, the deal with myself is I worked till Saturday until I got an appointment. That was just the deal.
And then go to the lake.
And then I went to the lake. It's exactly what happened.
Right.
And so first of all, most of the times I got it done by Friday. But this particular Saturday I got in there and she said, I'm in my car driving home. And I remember, this is crazy, but I said that to her and she said, can you call me back in 11 minutes? I was like, yeah, I'll call you back. And so I sat there and called her back. She answered the phone. I set the appointment. I did 3 deals on that transaction with her. I did 3 transactions over time with her, not on just from that phone call. We sold her house. She bought another house through Mike McGavick, who was my buyer's agent. He sold her the house. We got a $5,000 bonus, and then they ended up selling that one later. The point is that it was because of my habits. I created a set of habits, and my habits were Monday through Friday, this is what was like my KPI, the things that I did that drove.
You were doing the highly leveraged, high dollar per hour work. Yeah. If you look at the 9 box, you were doing the 2 things that drove the value of your business.
Yeah.
And you were committed to that, and you had habits around it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what I think that you have to decide. What are the things that you do daily right now, and then ask yourself when you're looking at those, are those servicing a sale or are those creating a sale?
Right.
And what kind of sale am I creating by doing this activity versus that activity? And then again, if it's a buyer transaction, you have to look at cost of sale, but ask yourselves the cost of your time. And then the only question is that when you're out showing a buyer for 4 hours and they don't buy, and you're showing another buyer for 6 hours or 2 hours, and you add that up and you get 2, the question is, could you get your hate up with your weight and pay them back when you're bigger? Could you get good enough at your skills to during that same time be highly leveraged and get more appointments more predictably by calling people that are already meet your criteria, like an expired or FSBO. Then you start turning on the legion and then it's easy.
Right.
Everything
Fish
from
in a
there
barrel.
it's easy.
Right, no doubt. You said something, man. It's funny. I was reading last night Sales Acceleration, the book about HubSpot and whatever, and they were talking about their interview for hiring salespeople for their company. And one of the things that stood out to me was the process they took them through. They gave them a script they gave them a scenario, and they let them play it out. And then afterwards, they gave them feedback on the whiteboard. Like, this is the VP of sales of HubSpot in an interview, giving them feedback on how they should have managed the role play, and then they have them do it again. And all they're looking for in that process is not their ability. It's not their ability. It's their curiosity and willingness to try to get better. How much are they paying attention to the notes that are being wrote on the board on how they could have done better? That curiosity around I think I could have done better. I get it. Yeah. So that it was a big gift for me. And you said it. You said it the same way. Like you didn't want to lose. You wanted to try to figure out. There's some curiosity around how do I win? How do I get better? How do I improve? And that piece in and of itself. It's the same thing I did. That's where I called every damn person that didn't list with me and asked them what could I have done differently. Every one of them. I wanted to know. And that's how I got better because I knew what I did wrong. I said, this is a problem. I'm not doing this, right? Like get out-friended, right? Like when you get really good at your presentation, you stop building rapport and taking the time to really get to know people and understand their real needs and connect with them on a personal level. Like you get out-friended. That's what happens. I got out-friended twice in a week. Never did that shit again. You know what I'm saying? Like that curiosity about how to get better and that willingness and to pay attention to go, okay, I'm tracking with you and taking notes. Didn't care. He said they always sucked. They were worse the second time than they were the first time because there's too much going on in their head to try to nail it. And they're trying so hard not to screw it up, that it's really difficult to nail it. Like 5 people in the whole history of the company ever did really good at that second one. But what they're looking for is that person that's really looking at that process that they're going through and trying to get better. Whether they know they're following the process or not, they're trying to always improve and get better. And I think that is probably one of the underlying secrets of success in a successful real estate agent.
I know you're right. You made me want to ask you one final question before we wrap this up.
Final question.
So, have you ever seen somebody who was in their first 6 months of real estate, 90 days, maybe a year, and you're like, that dude's going to crush. He's going to be good. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they weren't successful yet.
They weren't successful yet? Yeah. At any level?
They weren't. I'm saying at selling real estate.
Right.
I'm just saying I mean, this ain't a trick
question.
Absolutely. Like, have you ever met someone and be like...
I mean, I talked to somebody last week.
And I know that because so my question is, when you see that person and you're like, that person's got it. Yeah. What is it?
To me, it is they're coachable and they take action. It's funny because Jay Abraham said it to us a long time ago when we got on the phone with him, and he said, I like you guys. I'm not here for your intellectual entertainment. I'm going to answer questions as long as there's questions in the queue. But guess who the number one question was? Always us. You know what I'm saying? First in the queue, Jay Kinder, Michael Reese, John Kitches, we were always first. And when you're first in line and your problem is the next problem that you encountered after you did what he said to do the week before, that's a fun person to talk to because you went and did what I said. And it worked, didn't it? Yep. Okay, I got a new problem now. So here's the problem. Now what do I do, right? Yeah. Like it's that person that is coachable. They know that they're willing to invest. They're willing to invest in themselves. They're willing to listen. They're humble, hungry, and smart. I mean, that's the real key. They're smart enough to know that, and they're humble enough to know that they can always get better. They can always grow no matter how good they get. And they're hungry, like what we've been talking about. I want to win every listing that I walk. I would reverse the car with buyers in the car back to get it for sale by owner, and I'd write that shit down. You know what I'm saying? Like, you hungry. And being smart, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be smart enough to know to follow a process. There's a way to get better. You don't just lose. You figure out how to get better. You continuously try to do that. But I think it's the coachability factor. Really is in my mind. That's it's the hungry, humble, smart. I mean, it really is. But you've got to be willing to take action.
So coachable.
Yeah, I would say coachable is the number.
If you're writing a book.
If I was writing, that was a trick question because that's funny. And you got to tell them the story about how that was a book we were going to write. Coachable is the key, man. You see it in their face. They're either listening because they're going to go take action. You can see that in their face, or you can hear it over the phone that what do I need to do next? And they're coachable and they're listening, or they're giving you all the reasons why it won't work.
Yeah, I love it, man. Awesome.
Just to finish the tell of the story. So how long ago? That's in my office now. I could actually go get it. We ordered How to Write a Book, and we were going to write a book called Coachable because once we got super successful at real estate, what we did really well, if you ask Jay Abraham, we were really good modelers. We used to joke about it and say, copycatter number 1 to copycatter number 2. We would just copy whatever it was that worked. Which is it is modeling, and he says you got to give yourselves more credit than that because it ain't just copycatting. It's modeling success is the principle.
Yeah, we were shocked. We were like, everybody should be successful. I mean, like everything's right there. If you just were coachable and you get with the right person, that we don't have a coaching program or anything like that. But that's not the point. The point is that we invested into ourself and skipped some steps along the way.
Right.
So
that's how you grow exponentially.
Yeah.
Serious. Boom. That's all we got. Do we got anything else, man?
I don't have anything else.
As always, this is unscripted. I get to hear, I guess, some little dirty details of one of your listings after this podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
There's not very many things that don't make the cut, so I'm really actually interested in hearing what this story is. It must not be PG rated. So, but yeah, we try to break it to you open and real every time, face to face. Hopefully, if you've been listening, man, this is all making sense to you. And there's a lot of ways we can help you. We're always interested in doing that. And we're easy to get a hold of. Reach out to us. We'd love to help you grow your business.
Follow me on Snapchat.
Snappy Reese on Snapchat. All right,
I'm
man. I don't know what your handle is. It's too hard to find people on Snapchat, man. So, yeah. But we're easy
See
to
you
find.
at the top.
Or we'll see you from the top.
Or at the lake.
Face to face.